As I said in my opening remarks, it is thanks in large part to Kenny Ausubel that we are here today. Kenny, with his wife Nina, launched the annual Bioneers Conference in 1990 in order to disseminate practical and visionary solutions for restoring Earth's imperiled ecosystems and healing our human communities. Today, Bioneers draws more than 3,000 people each year to the national conference in San Rafael, California, and is beamed by satellite to another 10,000 attendees in 18 local conferences across the U.S. and Canada. And if you look in your brochure, we are casting the Bioneers conference from California at the Whaling National Historic Park Corson Maritime Learning Center. It's a mouthful, but it's the blue butterfly marked with an E on your map, and that begins at 1:30 each afternoon. Now, before starting Bioneers, Kenny co-founded Seeds of Change in an effort to restore backyard biodiversity and prevent the extinction of traditional and native seed stocks that are essential to the survival of our food systems. Kenny says that environmental disasters are almost always human disasters. Nonetheless, he believes that we have an opportunity to reimagine how to live on Earth in a good way that lasts, to regenerate our waning economy, at the same time correct environmental degradation and rampant social injustice. It is an enormous honor to introduce to you Kenny Ausubel.
Hey, it's sort of shocking, for Nina and me, after 19 years, we actually get to just attend a Bioneers conference. And boy, this is the one to attend. Marion has or Bioneers by the Bay really has the reputation in our satellite community as being kind of the gold standard that everybody tries to rise to. And I now know why firsthand, so I can go around tooting your horn everywhere. And really, thank you. It's an honor to, be with all these wonderful speakers. This is just a first-rate program that you have here, and we're very honored to be part of you, actually. So, thank you. And I especially want to thank one person, which is Michael Baldwin, whom Nina and I have known for many, many years. You all know up close and personal, but Michael is a living light and truly a visionary, but he's one of those visionaries who can actually put it together on the ground. Not a common, permutation to find. And also the whole Marion Institute, the board, and Disa and Callum, of course, the whole team here is just first rate. And I do want to mention Margot Baldwin and Chelsea Green, too, with whom we also have a long relationship. And, Chelsea Green has risen out of nowhere, out of left field, to become really the premier sustainability publisher. So kudos to Margot out there. And, we just came from last weekend in California, and so it's been quite a wild ride for us. But I did want to mention just a couple of things, because one of our special pleasures with Bioneers, with the conference, is to unleash these dark horses that very few people have actually heard of. There are some well-known or famous people in our movement of movements, but most people are not really well-known outside their field, if they're even well-known in their field. And so it's one of our special pleasures to kind of spring it on the world here, to get the work of incredibly important but under-recognized people out there. And there are two things I want to mention from last weekend in particular that I would recommend you check out. One is there was a PSA brought to you by Mother Nature from Bill McKibben, whom many of you know, who's worked on climate change issues and founded 350.org a few months ago to work on colleges. But there's a 5-minute piece that Bill did that really encourages all of our satellite partners to get on the web and email, because you can actually make a big difference in the next week running up to the election about future policy. So I don't know if the conference here even could show that 5 minutes during, the course of tomorrow perhaps, or today, but if not, go next door and check it out. It's really, really important, and you can do something, so please do it. And then I did just want to mention, I'll mention later in my talk, but Rebecca Moore of Google Earth Outreach, incredibly important work that has tremendous relevance on the ground to what we all are doing. It's a tool that's free, that's totally accessible if you can get online, that could really advance your work. So definitely check that out. And I would also highly recommend Rick Reed, who spoke, who talks a lot about collaboration, and they're doing some remarkable stuff in the Midwest that I'll also just mention, a project called ReAmp. That is showing how to think systemically and act collaboratively. And it's one of the most important models out there. So I did just want to flag all those. So anyway, with that said, I want to share with you some of what I spoke to people about in California. Dreaming the future can create the future. We stand at the threshold of a singular opportunity in the human experiment to reimagine how to live on Earth in ways that honor the web of life, each other, and future generations. It's a revolution from the heart of nature and from the human heart. Then again, in the immortal words of Yogi Berra, the future ain't what it used to be. We also stand at the brink of worldwide ecological and civilizational collapse. We face a reckoning resulting from the treacherous breach in our relationship with nature. We've been acting like a rock star trashing a hotel room, and it's the morning after. But this hotel is planet Earth, the guest rules are non-negotiable, and if we don't change our ways fast, management may just vote us off the island. We're entering an age of nature. It calls for a new social contract of interdependence. Taking care of nature means taking care of people, and taking care of people means taking care of nature. The ecological debt we've incurred is dire. We've precipitated climate change that's within 1 degree centigrade of the maximum temperature in the past 1,000,000 years. As NASA's chief climatologist James Hansen warns, beyond that we'll likely see changes that make Earth a different planet. Think Jurassic Park. Hansen and many other leading scientists say we have 10 years at best to make a massive global shift, an extreme carbon makeover. It's showtime. We're entering a drastic period of creative destruction. We've already begun to trigger what some ecologists call regime shift, irreversible tipping points. Global warming is getting all the ink, but other intimately interdependent issues equal its magnitude. The mass extinction of 30 to 50% of Earth's biological and cultural diversity, water shortages that will lead to wars, the universal poisoning of the biosphere, and the greatest extremes of inequality in modern history, a world that's 77% poor. Periods of creative destruction also present transformative opportunities to make the world anew. These tectonic shocks are evolutionary exclamation points. They release vast amounts of energy and resources for renewal and reorganization. Novelty emerges, and small changes can have big influences. It's a time of creativity, innovation, freedom, and transformation. The Grail is resilience, strengthening the capacity of natural and human systems to rebound or to transform when the regime shifts. As Charles Darwin said, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. The driving force behind this unprecedented globalized collapse is financial. Hazel Henderson characterizes conventional economics as a form of brain damage. We're experiencing its devastating effects right now. It rationalizes the insatiable predation of nature and people while disappearing environmental and social costs from the balance sheet. It concentrates wealth and distributes poverty. It exalts greed and self-interest. It conflates free markets with democracy. It merges corporations and the state, and its foreign policy is empire, and it's been a catastrophic success. As Kevin Phillips chronicled, every major empire over the past several hundred years has undergone a depressingly predictable cycle of collapse, usually within 10 to 20 years of its peak power. The hallmarks are always the same. The financialization of the economy, moving from manufacturing to speculation, very high levels of debt, extreme economic inequality, and costly military overreaching. The Dutch, Spanish, and British empires followed this pattern. The U.S. is repeating it. But as J. Paul Getty said, every time history repeats itself, the price goes up. Yet there's an even deeper story behind empire crash. Energy is a nation's master resource. Each empire has had an idiosyncratic ability to exploit a particular energy source that propelled its rise to economic power. The Dutch learned how to tap wood, wind, and water. The British Empire fueled its ascendancy on coal. The American Empire has dominated with oil. The cautionary tale is this: no empire has been able to manage the transition to the next energy source. The joker in the deck this time around is the climate imperative to transition off fossil fuels worldwide. It requires the most complex and fiercely urgent transition in the history of human civilization. Nothing like it has ever been done. Ecological regime change demands political regime change. As Lester Brown wrote, socialism collapsed because it did not allow prices to tell the economic truth. Capitalism may collapse because it does not allow prices to tell the ecological truth. We're in a race between tipping points in nature and our political systems. Just as economics is driving the destruction, it needs to power the restoration. The charge is to transform the global economy from a vicious cycle to a virtuous cycle. As the Archbishop of Canterbury said, the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. Real wealth creation is based on replenishing natural systems and restoring the built environment, especially our cities and infrastructure. It's based on investing in our communities and workforce. It's been shown to work best when done all at once. Restoration is an estimated $100 trillion market. There's plenty of work to do, plenty of people to do it, and plenty of financial incentive. And every dollar that we spend on pre-disaster risk management will prevent $7 in later losses. The rules of virtuous engagement aren't that complicated. As Fred Block wrote in The Moral Economy, the essential idea was brilliantly expressed in the title of a 1980s bestseller, All I Really Need to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. The guiding principles are familiar rules such as don't hit, take turns, play by the rules, listen to the teacher, don't waste food and art supplies, and be prepared to share. These principles produce order in the elementary school classroom, and they can also assure order and prosperity in our nation's economy. The question is, will we change our old bad habits fast enough to beat forbidding odds? In 2006, the worm turned. David Orr calls it a global ecological enlightenment. A big bang of brilliant, effective work is meeting with unprecedented receptivity in the world. Yet the pace of destruction outstrips our response. Real success is going to require a giant leap across the abyss on visionary currents of bold action. It will take skillful means. It will take a big heart. And in times like these, as Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Many of the solutions are already present, and where we don't know what to do, we have a very good idea what directions to head in. Game-changing technological and social innovations are surfacing constantly. Global digital media can spread them at the speed of text messaging. At the forefront is biomimicry, the art and science of mimicking nature's design genius. As Janine Benyus has said, nature has done everything we want to do, but without mining the past or mortgaging the future. There's nothing like having 4 billion years of R&D at your back. The biomimicry company Novomer looked at excess CO2 in the atmosphere, and they asked a simple question: what would a plant do? Well, a plant would treat it as food. Novomer figured out how to use CO2 as a feedstock to produce biodegradable green plastics. That's just one glimmer of what's possible, and it completely moves the goalposts from trying to just limit emissions to actually starting to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. Biomimicry is arguably the single most important design strategy to shoot the rapids of the next 10 years. but it transcends gee-whiz technology. Biomimicry inspires us with nature's genius, and it celebrates our kinship with the entire web of life. Among Navajo people in New Mexico, where we live, the worst insult you can make is to say, "You act like you have no relatives." Biomimicry invites us again to act like we have relatives. Indigenous peoples, our old-growth cultures, are the world's original biomimics, and indigenous and traditional knowledge hold equally crucial keys to restoration. A riptide of capital is mainstreaming biomimicry and clean tech, which is now the third largest domain of venture capital investment. In Silicon Valley, the Whatcom era has dawned. Compared with $100 billion for the entire internet market, the worldwide energy market is $6 trillion. Google just put forth a $4.4 trillion clean energy plan. By 2030, it proposes we can slash fossil fuel use by 88% and CO2 emissions by 95%. The smart money is hot on the trail of the next industrial revolution, and there's mounting pressure on Uncle Sam because government policies make or break markets. Astoundingly, the U.S. has no national energy policy, and as you heard yesterday from David Orr, that's hopefully about to change. David, who's really the nation's leading environmental educator, stepped through the looking glass outside academia to assemble a national network to put together the Presidential Climate Action Plan. And they're in very active meetings with the campaigns right now to really try to mobilize in 2009 for the incoming administration. But for now, the real action is happening at local and regional levels. California, the world's sixth largest economy, passed AB 32, the world's first comprehensive climate change legislation, and the state is gearing up to put in 12.5 square miles of solar panels, 12 times the previous largest. Here in Massachusetts, you all just passed the nation's most far-reaching package of renewables and green jobs legislation, which is a huge landmark. And you all know, I think, know Greg Watson, who recently joined our board. We're very honored, but Greg here in Massachusetts was instrumental working from the governor's office in that, and you guys really have set the model for the rest of us. Texas is about to build the biggest wind installation ever, which will mean it surpasses Germany as the world leader. And multi-city and multi-state collaborations are spreading nationwide. In the coal-fired Midwest, REAMP's network has helped accomplish serious state-level renewables and efficiency targets in 7 states where they got the governors to sign on. And that collaboration has stopped in 5 years all but one coal plant of 24 proposed coal plants from being built. Enough municipalities are competing for greenest city status to start a green sports league. Mayor Michael Bloomberg of New York, who produced the Big Apple's 2030 Green Plan, said, "Shrinking the world's carbon footprint is a pro-growth strategy, indeed the only pro-growth strategy for the long term." And tellingly, the nation's greenest cities are the ones with the most active citizenry, where bottom-up meets top-down. So all the kind of work people are doing here, it really makes the difference, not just a difference. Demand for a green-collar workforce is rising far faster than the supply. In the U.S., where income inequality is the highest of any industrialized country, these jobs pay $16 to $30 an hour at entry level, which is $33,000 to $62,000 a year. And the green-collar restoration economy can and will help address economic, racial, and political injustice while also healing the atmosphere. But the real impetus behind local initiatives is to reboot Uncle Sam, because national laws and policies severely restrict local activities, and the federal government is where the real money is. Will Uncle Sam get on board, or at least get out of the way? Will the nation devolve into a radically decentralized, regionally governed country? Both. Some decentralization of power seems almost inevitable, organized by bioregions appropriate to how nature functions. Yet in truth, the environment is a global-local issue, and there's major movement internationally as well. Germany, with fewer sunny days than Michigan, is the world's solar leader because of government policies that have already resulted in 14% national renewable energy. Spain, France, Italy, and Greece are copying the policies now. The EU is driving new markets with CO2 caps and strong incentives for energy entrepreneurs. And resource-poor Japan, the gold standard of energy efficiency, is making a major play to market its radically advanced conservation technologies worldwide, which can save 50+% energy just right off the bat. And China has made top-level commitments to large-scale R&D on renewables and auto gas efficiency. So the U.S. needs to be careful because we could get left in the dust here. The rest of the world is far ahead of us in many ways. We need to take this work to scale during the next decade. Breakthrough technological innovations have to spread rapidly, as do the government policies that drive these markets. Of equal importance are social innovations and political regime change. In Europe, something called the e-Parliament is reaching out directly to national lawmakers all across Europe, outside the UN framework and the Mediterranean basin, to accelerate the spread of policy best practices, model legislation, and parliamentary toolkits. It's pushing to build a large-scale multinational green grid within 10 years. It's also been instrumental in disseminating Costa Rica's breakthrough forest policy, whereby subsidizing ecosystem services and providing financial incentives to farmers and agroforesters, they've restored the canopy, the forest cover of Costa Rica from 29% to 51%. And ecotourism is roaring. The new national constitution of Ecuador just turned property law on its head. It's the first country to institute legally enforceable rights for nature and ecosystems. And I don't know if you all have seen Tom Lindsay, who's a longtime Bioneer friend. That's Tom's work, and it's modeled, it was through a connection made to Ecuador that included the Pachamama Alliance, Lynn and Bill Twist, who are here, who directly helped network that work in Latin America, and it's really a huge deal. It's the shot heard around the world. And recently, this past year, the governments of Australia and Canada initiated national reconciliation through formal apologies to their First Peoples for past harms. The North owes a massive ecological debt to the South. Both among and within nations, the global restoration economy will go a very long way toward healing the ravages of empire, genocide, and racism. These are landmark successes, but as Michael Kinsley of Rocky Mountain Institute says, we have to go from success stories to systemic change. It's going to take epic cooperation among business, government, and civil society, and among nations. We need to play big, and we need to aim high. It begins with a dream. In the words of Janine Benyus, the criterion of success is that you keep yourself alive and you keep your offspring alive. But it's not your offspring, it's your offspring's offspring 10,000 years from now. Because you can't be there to take care of that offspring, the only thing you can do is to take care of the place that takes care of your offspring. In that spirit, Bioneers initiated a collaborative project last year in our own backyard called Dreaming New Mexico. Its purpose is to help tip at the state level and to reconcile human and natural systems. And I just wanted to show you a couple of quick images. Hopefully they'll appear. The project co-director Peter Warshall came up with the idea of doing future maps. The premise of the project is dreaming the future can create the future. And so often as people involved in social change, we're in a mode of resistance, of just trying to stop all the bad stuff from happening. And we don't step back and ask, what would success look like? What would happen if we got what we really want? You know, what is our dream? So we started with the age of renewable energy. It's a large map. I'll just show you a few images here that are not coherent or anything, but it shows a green grid, a decentralized literal power structure. It very heavily emphasizes a decentralized system. We did a very intensive research analysis of the local sources of power, how to customize it for our place, governance issues, and so forth, and there's a pamphlet that goes with it. This is available from the Bioneers website. You can go to the dreamingnewmexico.org website. There's a pamphlet that goes with it. We created it partly as a template so that any place could dream your future, if you want to do it in New Bedford or Dreaming Massachusetts or Dreaming New England. So we hope it will be useful to people. And we also worked with Google Earth Outreach, Rebecca Moore, whom I mentioned, to adapt part of it to Google Earth technology so you can actually do a fly-through and see what your place looks like. Anyway, there's a lot more, but I know I'm running over time, so I'm going to stop soon. I'd like to close with some words from David Oates from an essay called Imagine in High Country News. Let me just turn this off for these guys. To imagine is difficult. It takes courage, encouragement. It takes opportunities carefully constructed by me or the fates. Then something magic happens. A key turns in a lock, eyebrows ascend on foreheads, and a new world is glimpsed, a 3D moment that dazzles. A vision predicates an imaginative leap, that we are, after all, fundamentally connected to each other, that my fate and happiness are not private matters only, but a shared project. A tax cut takes no imagination. It's a few more bucks in your pocket. But seeing one's ownership in a community, one's own face in someone else's child, that takes imagination. Imagine combining our resources to relieve suffering and to open up dead ends of poverty and hopelessness. Imagine knowing that our fate is each other. Imagine knowing that our fate also swims with the salmon and grows with the trees. Imagine living beyond yourself, finding the thing you're good at and in love with, even if it doesn't pay so well. That would be like coming back to life, wouldn't it? That would be like grace. Imagine. Thank you.